Alrighty guys, today we are going to be talking over taper. What is taper? What should you do in the lead up to your competitions? How does taper affect your strength training? All these different kind of things. But first up, we do need to have a quick chat about what a taper actually. So what to do, what not to do, that's kind of the theme of the chat, and I've kind of based this off some common questions that I get asked and how we navigate them and what we do in our programming to make sure that we continue people in the gym all the way up until their event, but making sure they're getting the most out of it. So it comes down to what is a taper. A taper is to decrease the volume and intensity to achieve ultimate physical and mental readiness. So it's about peaking. And the thing with peaking is you can miss a peak and you can start detraining. So it's very important to time your adaptations right, and that's why dropping gym altogether is fundamentally flawed. Some coaches are going to tell you to do it 4 weeks out. I'm going to go through questions later. I'm probably giving away a fair bit here, but fundamentally that's a flaw in their programming philosophy, because if we're looking to peak at the right time, we need to make sure that the program and the gym sessions are doing the same thing, not just dropping things out. So the object of a taper is to allow for adaptation and rest before the key competition or event. It is not about putting your feet up, okay? So here's some frequently asked questions that we get. Should I keep doing the gym? What do I do? How do I adjust my program? What type of exercises? Why do they change? How does it affect strength and power? And what is the benefit of continuing to do strength training during taper? Because a lot of people just go, why don't I just take the extra rest? Like I could take an extra 2 hours of rest and recovery. But they miss out on the opportunity to get their body into perfect physical condition, risk detraining, and end up making life harder. It's very hard for us to program that way. If your gym coach is doing their thing right, they should be dropping that down as it goes and have a plan all the way up to the day of the event, because that's what matters. That's the peak event. And we can also write gym sessions that we can do the day before if we have to, if that's applicable to the situation, that are going to enhance the ability of that athlete on the day through priming techniques such as explosive movements, overcoming isometrics and such and such and such. So it's really critical that we should be doing gym all the way up to events. What you're going to do in the gym is going to change. How long you're in the gym for is going to change. What you're going to do while you're there is going to change. But at the end of the day, it's much easier for us as your gym coaches or as an S&C provider to control the controllables when we can see you and we have contact with you. If you're not there, you're not there, and we've got no way of making sure that you're going to be doing your thing right. So it's really key. And we're going to go over these now. So, to gym or not to gym, that is the question. We obviously think gym, so I've written here gym obviously, but make sure your gym is appropriate to what you're trying to achieve. It should look to facilitate rest and recovery while maintaining strength and power. This is not the time to look to get gains. So taper isn't about getting gains, but it's also not about pulling the handle off. We're not going to be pressing the weights up unless there's rep decreases and stimulus changes, of course, but generally we're not going to be looking to push weights up past what we have been doing. We're looking to maintain and do them faster with more intent, add a bit of pop to them as the load goes down to ensure that we're getting that power speed adaptation that we're looking for and facilitating that rest. It's all about making sure that we're doing the right things at the right times to build off the training blocks that we have just done. Changing it up, so this is, you should obviously change what you're doing in the gym during your taper. You shouldn't probably be doing heavy deadlifts off the floor unless you're training for a powerlifting competition or something like that. But for gym guys, it's generally too much low CNS that you can't recover from quick enough. So that's why we don't do. Often we wouldn't do something like a heavy deadlift off the floor, but we would still do maybe an RDL, but with the emphasis of moving the bar as fast as possible to stimulate triple extension and power output. We still might do some bench press, like some dumbbell pressing, because we're going to use the contrast from that to throw a ball as hard as we can and increase the neural connectivity of that muscle group and stimulate growth. Well, not growth, but stimulate the adaptation that we're looking to push through here. It doesn't mean that you just go into the gym and you do rolling and stuff like that and stretching and sitting in compression boots, okay? But it does mean we have more opportunity to do that because we have decreased the load, and you're probably still thinking you're going to be in there for an hour. So instead of that, instead of spending more time doing more, as the volume decreases, naturally you're going to end up with more time. So that does give us the opportunity to put you in compression boots, send you to ads for a massage, there's massage therapists, manual therapy, all of that kind of stuff do come into play here. It does free up that time, and you do still get extra rest and recovery. But you've come in, so if something does happen, because taper is this magical, mystical beast that everyone either gets sick in, has a shoulder injury, or something pops up out of the blue like a right hand of God, and you've got to make sure that you've got someone there to look after you and make sure you're going to push through that. It means that we can move weights faster, we can throw balls around, and we can take longer rests and reduce the volumes to facilitate these changes that we're trying to have and get this peak event. Taper exercises, this is a really funny one. I've got a lot of people that have who ask me what my taper exercises are, and to be honest, they're exactly the same as my exercises that we're doing all the time anyway. They're just variations, and the way that we are doing them changes. So you should have a lot of variation exercises such as you enter the taper phase, as it creates a huge amount of stimulus and change. So we don't actually want to change too much. We don't want to start introducing new exercises, because that increases, because your body is not used to that exercise and that movement under load, it then starts to freak out a little bit, and that creates a bit more fatigue, and your body's got to adjust and stimulate from that. So we try and keep the exercises almost the same and then build from there. This should all be pre-planned with your coach and then built through that as we go on from there, in accordance to the decreases in volume that you're going to be experiencing. You're also not going to be losing your gains through this process. So a lot of people are like, I'm going to lose my game. Don't worry about it. If you're doing it right, you should exit the taper with more strength and power at your disposal because of the adaptation and because we're at your peak physical and mental condition. It's kind of the point. However, you may feel sluggish and slow during the taper period as your body is going through this adaptation period. And that's also absolutely fine. And then, some people go, well, why should I go to the gym when I can just rest? Well, because you don't get access to your coach, you're on the couch. And you don't get a coach looking at you going, okay, well, we need to plan this out, we need to balance this out, and we need to make some changes here to make sure that we get you to this peak. I can tell from the way you walk in the gym if we need to go a little bit harder that day than we initially planned because we're undercooking or overcooking, or the reverse. I know, oh shit, he's coming in a bit tired, he didn't get a good night's sleep last night, we need to reduce that. If we're not there to do that, if you don't come in to the gym or do your sessions, we don't have that opportunity. You just end up losing out. So there's way more benefits to doing it than not doing it. So we always go with do it. And there's obviously some reasoning to this, okay? So it's, as I've talked about, it's all about timing the peak. You want the balance of your taper. You want to balance your taper between adaptation and detraining. That's where that peak is going to happen. So when you've maximized on the adaptation process, but you've not started to detrain yet, that's what we're looking for. And if you're not doing that through having an exercise plan in place, you're obviously going to have some problems. So the adaptation period requires your body to rest and recover, but if you do so for too long, you will start to detrain and decondition. And by having you in the gym, we can facilitate very specific adaptations in the lead up to events to make sure that we've got those things ticked off, and you're not going to hit detraining, and we're going to facilitate that rest and recovery. Both of these things can negatively impact. If we overcook you, we're going to be in issues. If we undercook you, we're going to have issues. You won't perform at your peak at the event, and that's the whole bloody point that you trained for the last 18 months for. So it's far easier for us to adjust a program to decrease the volume if you guys are in the gym than if you don't come into the gym. So if you're not coming into the gym, it becomes very hard for us to manage that and deal with the things that get thrown your way during a taper period, like sleep, nervousness, stress, all those other things, okay? So by coming in, that gives us the best opportunity to do those things. It's also very hard to plan not to get you to a point where we can go, okay, you can have 2 to 4 weeks off and you're going to peak at this date. Just very difficult to do and gives us a lot of room for error. So here's some things that you should think about with this, okay? It should all be a part of a plan. Your coach should have built out this plan and knows exactly what they're doing. Your taper should have been thought about 16 weeks ago from the event. because it's just the last bit. It's, you know, it's the fine tuning at the end, but we've built the whole block behind getting you ready for this moment that we can drop you down and detrain you. So your taper should already be sorted out, and it should be a part of the plan. If they're making it up on the spot, maybe not. It's probably a bad time. But you know, I certainly, with the guys that we're working with, we don't do that. We've planned this stuff out weeks and months in advance. You can strength train all the way up to the event itself with no negative effects. We often have guys do priming sets the day before their competitions, even if it's at a hotel or gym that near the thing or whatever. It happens all the time. The day before travel, like all of these things that didn't happen. And it's to make sure that we've got everything ticked off and everything's going in the right direction, and we're getting the right adaptation at the right time, and people are ready and firing for that event. The longer you have been training, the more buffer you will have. So the more you've been training, the more window you have. So the longer, say if you've been training for a year for an event, you have way more buffer zone than if you had been training for 12 weeks, because you've had more blocks of training behind you. You've gone through adaptations before. You can build and build and build on these things. Whereas if you're just building in a 12-week block, there's less wiggle room, because if something goes wrong, you don't have as much reserves to draw on. So again, training for long periods of time, you know, is where we're at. We like swimmers to be in our program for a long extended period of times. We don't do like 12-week fixes or anything like that normally. So that's a big reason why. And as I've said, your coach should have built your training, your taper into your training plan ages ago. All right, guys. So that's again, it's follow the plan, trust the process, trust your coach knows what you're doing, and you're going to be okay.